Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Fighter Heart podcast. I'm Joe Rizzo, and thank you for joining us for this very special Fighter Heart Roundtable podcast. At Fighter Heart, we believe true strength isn't just physical, it's about resilience, grit, and heart. Life has a way of testing us. When you're knocked down, it's easy to stay there. But a Fighter Heart doesn't quit, a Fighter Heart rises. Tonight, I'm honored to sit with three incredible people who have faced real adversity, moments that could have broken them but didn't. Their stories are raw, powerful, and a reminder that it's not the struggle that defines us, it's the fight that's in us. So, all right, so let's just get started here. If you guys could give us like a brief reintroduction of who you are, and we'll take it from there. Can we start with Manny this time?
All right. So, hi everyone. My name is Manny Garcia. I'm born and raised in Miami, Florida. And when in 2019, I was diagnosed with stage four pancreatic cancer. So, with stage four cancer is obviously like a pretty dire situation and pretty scary. With pancreatic cancer, it still maintains the highest mortality rate of all the cancers. So, essentially, like when I was diagnosed, like the big horror was like the doctors explaining to me that it's like, oh, like you don't have like weeks or months to live. We're talking about it's like, oh, you're in here, and it's like, oh, you have a mass in your pancreas the size of like a golf ball or like an avocado seed. It's spread to your liver where there's more tumors than we can count. It's in your lymph nodes, it's in your spine. You even have a couple brain tumors. Like it was a big mess. So it wasn't even like yeah, get to that bucket list, get your affairs in order. It's like oh shoot, we don't know if we're gonna put you on the chemo floor or the hospice floor and all this stuff. Like that was
Yeah.
like sort of like the vibe that it's like, yo, we are out of time. But through like the whole thing, I had a huge support system behind me. The long story short is that, with people like that were external to myself, like mainly like my family, my friends, the hospital that I was at, I had all the right support systems in place and all working in tandem together that it's like, oh my gosh, like it's like it almost makes it hard to not rationalize. It's like, is this fate? Is this God? Is this the universe? Whatever it is, I'm gonna take it and I'm gonna run with it and all this stuff. So it's so yeah, I beat it. That was 5 years ago, or actually 6 years ago. I'm like losing count now of the years, but I'm 32 these days, happy, healthy. I skydive, for fun on the weekends. I like to do a little bit of base jumping and like some other stuff. But yeah, that's kind of like the whole thing in a nutshell.
Wow, skydiving, what's base jumping?
Base
Same thing.
jumping. So it's similar in principle. It's an acronym. So it's an acronym. It's spelled BASE, and it spells out the objects that you jump from. So the difference between skydiving and base jumping is skydiving is jumping out of an aircraft or aviation, and base jumping is jumping off of a fixed object. So like a building, an antenna, span, or earth. Span meaning like bridges and stuff. So like fixed objects. It's honestly, it's not smart. It's very dangerous, and it's like for some reason it's like become like part of my hopes and dreams and stuff. And there's a process to pursuing that and like all that stuff, which I'm like slowly like getting to. Like I have about like 50 base jumps, but there's still like more I need to kind of like get in order before I have more of like a life and a lifestyle that surrounds that I can kind of like pursue that more. But I do skydive a lot. I got like 600 suiting. I do like the wingsuiting and like all this stuff. It's a fun
You
time.
wear the squirrel suit like that
Yeah.
thing so you can
Yeah.
glide.
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
that's crazy.
Oh yeah. It's like you already feel like in regular skydiving like you're some kind of like weapon, like a missile, like the way that you can like fly and like surf the air with your body. But when you put on that wingsuit, it's like, oh, I'm a fighter jet now. It's like, yeah, get my Maverick helmet, play like music as I'm walking up to the plane. Like something like
Do
that. But
you
yeah,
think before you were diagnosed, you would have done something like that?
so I actually was a skydiver before I
Uh,
got diagnosed, but it
uh,
was something that I started skydiving when I was 19, and I got to about like 80 jumps, and then I stopped because I was like, oh, well, like I had enough money to get my license, but I don't have enough money to have like my own gear, really like chase the sport more. So I told myself, let me stop for like a year or like some time, save up enough money to do it. And then, life happens. Like, let me get the 20% down payment for a house. Let me like, go do this. Let me be an adult. Let me like, do when in Rome, like type thing. And then before I knew it, it's like several years have gone by. I'm not like really pursuing this anymore. It's still in the back of my mind. And then it's like I'm 26 years old being told that it's like, oh, you're dying. We're not sure what to do. And it's like, oh, wait a minute. No, 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 no. I have
I
plans.
gotta start base jumping.
I'm not even close to even starting that part of it. It's like, oh shoot. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, geez. All right, awesome story, man. Let's move on to MaKenzie. Do you want to give us your little rundown?
Sure. I'm MaKenzie Franklin, now Whitman. It's in the transition of last name change. I just got married. Um,
Congrats.
Thank you, thank you. And I'm freshly pregnant, so like I'm a
Oh,
little rough right now, so I apologize. I'm like I'm kind of
double,
coming out of the first trimester like depth. So anyway,
double
besides that,
congrats.
thank you, thank you. It's a trip already. I don't know.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, I am 30 years old. I was in a motorcycle accident in 2020. And when you said you're like losing track of time, I totally can just like relate to that. It's crazy you can get to a point where you start to lose track because sometimes it feels like just yesterday. But I was in a motorcycle accident with my now husband in 2020, which resulted eventually in me getting my left leg amputated above the knee. Um, and now I guess I do a lot of things. And I think it all came from motivation of like, wow, you really can just die in a second, and there is a lot of life out there to still live. And so now I'm a realtor in Minnesota, Wisconsin. I got my license because I got bored of sitting on the couch when I was recovering because I'm a busybody. So I was like, might as well do that. So I just took that on full time now. And I went part time at my animal hospital job. I'm a certified vet tech in the ER and ICU. And then I play for the USA women's sitting volleyball team. Um,
That's it.
yeah,
That's all.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's a very basic rundown of the last 5 years. So
All right. Maybe you'll be base jumping soon.
I don't know. That sounds terrifying.
I know some buddies that you could go tandem base jumping with, like
Oh
out
yeah,
and out in Idaho. So
Like
yeah.
you all hold hands in that circle and like you're floating with suits on. That's what I'm thinking.
Well, there's
that's
not enough
wild.
time to do that like off a bridge, but it's like the same way how you could do a tandem skydive strapped to somebody, you could do a tandem base jump. Like there's
Oh,
a guys
Oh,
that sort of thing.
so you don't
Yeah,
have to worry
I
about
was like,
anything.
but I'll go back to my earlier statement. It's not smart. Just skydiving safe. Just stay
yeah.
with
Stick to that.
I'll start with there maybe.
Awesome. Thank you for this story, MaKenzie. And
Mhm.
let's go to Sam and then we'll start asking some questions.
All right, yeah. So mine was a slow burn scenario. I'm a below knee amputee. I was an elective amputee that was August 26th of 2020. That was the result of an injury in September of 2011 when I was active duty training in Biloxi, Mississippi. The basic story is tripped and fell on a run and developed complex regional pain syndrome, which is a real nasty guy to have. It's the last diagnosis you really want. And especially back in 2011, this was a little bit before we started taking chronic pain serious. Um, back before we were taking opiates serious. And really, like the biggest issue for me was I had no support system really actually that came into play there. It was kind of a too bad, so sad. We don't really know what to do. And from the military standpoint, that kind of defers any responsibility
Mhm.
in a sense. And that was kind of, I just got sent on my way. I was discharged a little over a year later, and through nine years of deterioration, I worked very hard the whole time to basically not fall off the edge of the cliff. Is basically what I spent that entire 9 year period doing. It eventually came to my attention through a little bit of luck, fate, universe, that amputation was a potential option. I had exhausted all my options years prior, and so I began the process of fighting for an elective amputation. The VA was really not on my side there either. They weren't doing anything to help me get better, but they were also denying me any attempt to get better. And unfortunately, the stories are pretty true about how the VA operates. And eventually, it got done, and I got a referral out. The amputation was done, and that I woke up out of surgery with my first moment out of pain in 9 years. I never saw zero on the pain chart from the day I got hurt, and I woke up out of pain and honestly had no clue what to do with it. Um, Yeah, there's just all the space up in my brain, all the room for karate now. You know, since then, you know, my wife and I, we would call it pinging because I would just out of nowhere, I would just be all over the place in a conversation and be like, oh, I'm pinging right now.
Yeah.
Because like, again, I didn't know it was my first interaction with my wife that I wasn't in severe pain. Like it was literally the first time I'd ever interacted with my wife and not felt horrible. And so
Was the pain like in your leg, or was it like your
yeah.
back?
So there's a lot of things that can happen with CRPS, and one of the things that I was very fortunate is it never spread, which was at that point the last big fear we had. I was like, well, nothing is helping, nothing is working, and the only thing that hasn't happened is it hasn't spread to another limb. And going into the amputation, that was considered a risk that they potentially not solve the problem. But I was sitting there like, well, I'm headed for a wheelchair anyway. I was, 30. I'm like, I don't, 30. Yeah. I was like, I'm going to be in a wheelchair within 2 years. I know that for a fact. I was on a forearm crutch to walk around and coach all day at that point. And so I was like, I'm going to throw the last punch, see what happens. And like I said, I incredibly fortunate, woke up out of pain, happened to have a surgeon that was actually particularly passionate about my condition and the procedure that he's kind of evolved the Earl procedure multiple times in his career.
Mhm.
And now all of a sudden I had all that work, all that knowledge, all the things that I had done to try and save myself. I now got to put all those habits into play without pain, without that resistance. And it's kind of been sky's the limit since then. It started with me getting back into some of the things that I had done before. I was an early adopter on CrossFit, and I ended up hopping in and was on, a team that I competed able-bodied at Wadapalooza as an amputee. I got back into Highland Games where I have 5 of the 8 world records are mine. I've then started diving into some new stuff. I've fought and won a kickboxing match. I ran a marathon on 36 hours notice, and to I'm currently training for ultra marathons now. I'm planning my first ultra marathon will be in August as a 50K up in Wisconsin, but it's going to be pretty flat. The nasty gnarly one is I'm currently in a training block for Grindstone 50K, which is one of the harder 50Ks in the country. And out in Virginia, I don't know. I'm jazzed about it. I don't know why, but
Is that you mean
I'm very excited.
50 kilometers that we're talking?
Yeah.
How many
Yeah. So
miles is that?
it's about 32,
32 miles. Oh,
32. And then we'll assess how far we want to go after that.
oh
Uh,
man. Jeez.
I know I'm going to go further. It's a matter of like, does my heart need me to do a 100 miler to be satisfied in this quest or not? And we'll find out. Well, I learned a lot. So I was on the romp Ecuador team this past year. I climbed Mount Cotopaxi, and that was its own like unique growing up and living at sea level in a very flat place. Perspective change going straight up, and that was and also like because I couldn't do all those things, I began like I've explored strength very thoroughly. I've explored athletics very thoroughly. Not that there isn't more to learn, but endurance, like I would say voluntary endurance is the only thing I've never done a deep dive on you know, there's an argument to be made that my 9 years with CRPS is actually my biggest endurance test. And I'm getting to use those and reap those rewards now. And so endurance is where my heart wants to go. And I just think about, well, if I can do that, if I can handle myself for 50 miles, 50K, 100 hills, mountains, what adventures are off the table? And it's not a lot. And that's a very driving force to me living my life is, uh, and yeah, I mean, like, Manny's over here doing actual psycho shit.
Yeah.
That's I was like it's one of those things that people are like, they tell me this, like, man, why do you do all these things? Like
Yeah.
it's hard. Things have been hard. I was like, yeah, I was like, but after you've like kind of faced your own mortality, it takes a little more
That's
to
what I
turn
was.
you got to turn the volume. Like what turns the volume up has
Mhm.
moved. That's a moving target, and
Yeah.
that's why I'm not going to say I'm never going to base jump, because then I'll for sure end up doing it because I was definitely certain I was never going to be the token amputee running a marathon, and there I was being all inspirational.
We're gonna see on the news tomorrow, like local man scales building. Like
I
St.
may
Louis
or may
man
not
brings
have been
Florida to the
casing a building
Missouri.
yesterday with my buds. Like, oh.
Would you say, Manny?
I said I may or may not have been casing a building last night with my buds. Like,
Yeah,
down in Miami. Like, yeah, we'll
yeah,
see.
like base jumping's illegal, right?
No.
It's not. It's
No.
not all the way legal.
So it's not there's only in national parks it's strictly illegal and in New York City. But in most other places it's not like it's a crime or it's like if I did it like a jump, it's like by the time you would notice that the base jump is happening is when the parachute opens. Makes a big like thwap. And
Yeah.
then everybody looks up and then like people hit you with the same question. Like if you do get spotted, it's like, did you just jump from the building? No, I was skydiving and I just died. Like
Yeah.
or
No, I just slipped and happened to be wearing a parachute.
Yeah.
there's
Thank
sometimes like
God I
you
was
could have
wearing
like
this thing.
you could have the most hilarious interaction with like a local that's just like looks at you with bewilderment, like you're like throwing your stuff over a fence, like helmet still on, and it's like, did you just jump from that building? It's like, who, me? No, that was that other guy. That
Yeah.
was crazy though. And I'm holding the parachute like with the helmet on, like running away, like but
It's so so I was gonna say because this is a trend I've noticed. We've done a lot of these interviews. Like after people go through this life-changing event, or I've gone through a lot of adversity in life in general, they are become like more adventurous. I feel like that's just. And why do you guys
yeah.
think that is? Do you think it's like you said, Sam? It's just you face death, and it's like now you need something new to turn up the adrenaline.
I mean, there's definitely that. Like because everything's relative, right? Just because I run a marathon doesn't discount the 5K that somebody else who's listening to this may want to run. That may be the equivalency. Like that, like it may do the exact same thing for them as it does for me, and it's why I will like it's one of my big rules. I won't refer anyone to somebody who talks down on somebody doing stuff because they didn't do it the way that I was like, yeah, look at the obesity statistics in this country and tell me it's worth our energy arguing over how to exercise instead of how to get more people to exercise. But like, so like, yeah, there is that like it's all relative. How like hard is relative, and I think for the people that go through shit, I'm sorry, I actually should ask, are we like hardcore not doing that? I mean, obviously I've already ruined it,
No, I
but
haven't. I would have told you. No, you're good.
appreciate that. Okay. But yeah, so the people that have gone through it, like there's typically one of two responses. They either use that as a vote of confidence or a fear to hide under. I don't want to have anything hard ever again. And the people that choose to be like, man, I have survived all of this. Well, that's definitely less than that. Like, and that sort of stuff. And so like you start to realize what that that evidence does for you. Because that's what it is. Everything, it's all evidence. I know that I can endure really tough things, and Manny can endure really, really tough stuff, and MaKenzie can endure really tough things. So why would I take this thing that might be interesting to me off the table when I already know, like, I bet I'll survive. I don't have to do it again. You know, Failure's not fatal, and we've learned that. I mean,
Yeah.
you had Manny, you said it was stage 4.
Yeah, stage 4
My
pancreatic.
condition's called the suicide disease because that's the common cause of death.
Right.
Like neither of us we're for sure not supposed to be here. Like that's really why would I not take that as I can
Sign.
definitely go do this. I can definitely go do this thing that I want to do.
The language that you're using that you're talking about it like resonates like so hard with me because like how you're saying it's like, oh, it's like what's not on the table, or what have I been eschewing off the table that I could have, or all this stuff, or when you're faced with this like hardcore reality of like, holy shit, like I just did that, like I accomplished that, and like all this stuff, and then it's like, what else am I telling myself that I can't do, and all this stuff,
You-
and then it starts to click that it's like, oh shit, it's like anything I can imagine almost, like if it's unless physics says you can't do it, it's like it's on the table in some
Yeah.
way, shape, or form. There's a will,
right?
way, all that, and it sounds hallmarky and stuff, but when you really like have that experience and you're like, oh, like wow, like it's a game changer. And
You
it's
someone's going to. You guys are going to go to space or something soon with Katy Perry.
Why
oh
not?
man, I would
Why
love,
not?
not only do I want to go to space, I want to jump right
Yeah,
at the
you.
top of that thing, bro. Oh.
I've seen this Red Bull commercial.
You're, you're like
I mean, there's
falling.
some training involved and some schooling involved to do that, but oh man, that looks
Yeah,
fun.
You'll be
exactly.
falling.
But we look at the idea of that training, and none of us think that that's not in the realm of possibility.
Well,
You know,
that resonates for me, that it's like, oh, I found like this love, and like I'm finding like the things that I
like
love and
fighting,
align with and have
like
passion
fighting.
for and all that stuff. But it's like we all have like those kinds of things and stuff. And I think like that's like really what it comes, like not even that's what it comes down to, but that's where most of us draw meaning from our lives, right? Where we get like our meaning and purpose from the things we love, the people we love, the experiences that we have with them, the memories that we make. We have all this like kind of abstract language trying to describe like, oh, like what makes my life purposeful, meaningful, and all this stuff. But ultimately, it comes from within us. Like no one else is gonna just be like, here you go, and all this stuff. And then so facing like, such like a hardcore like thing, I think it's something where like that meaning and purpose, like it gets easier to establish that stuff sooner than like maybe
Yeah.
like the average person.
Yeah. Would you say that there's also like question for you two, Manny and McKenzie, like by going through that stuff, it's a lot harder to lie to yourself.
Mm.
Like
Yeah,
like the,
totally.
like you had to we've had to deal with like an intense level of the truth where we didn't get to out. We couldn't just be like, I'm done. I quit. I can't do this, even though that's a lie, you know? And so so now that because once you get good at being honest with yourself, I feel like that's one of the biggest things that gets in the way of people is they tell themselves these stories that aren't true. And again, we've had to from here to here deal with that and from a very honest place.
But sometimes,
Yeah, I
yeah. Sorry.
sorry. I think like from an athlete's like standpoint, I guess, I now just see it as like my only competitor is myself and I know myself the best. So like you can't I can't lose, like no matter what I'm winning. And because I'm, doing something against myself, my biggest competitor, and that's a big motivator. And it's like I didn't give up on myself once when I really easily could have just said, I'm just gonna bleed out here because this hurts. And I didn't do that then. So it's like when I'm like faced with any adversity or like a challenge, I'm like, if I could literally live through bleeding out in a ditch and keep my leg tourniqueted for that long, I can freaking do anything. Like, don't get me wrong. There's days though where I'm like, I do not want to do this and it sucks and like all that stuff, but I don't know. Life's just a lot. You just realize how much more worth living it is after you endure something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's like the old saying of like you gotta feel sad to feel good. Like you guys felt really, really bad, so now you feel really, really good when you do.
Totally.
Yeah.
Like
You ever hear the bit where they're like, do you need basketball shoes to play basketball? No,
yeah,
but it fucking helps. I didn't need to lose my leg to appreciate how amazing it is walking around the block is and walking this dog that keeps trying to hop in the podcast.
yeah,
Like, I don't know if you guys have noticed this. Um, but I'm not going to lie and pretend that it doesn't help. like,
Mhm.
yeah.
I've been gifted perspective through hardship.
Is it fair to say you guys are you more likely or less likely to take risks after dealing with what you dealt with?
I'm more
Way
risk.
more.
Yeah, yeah.
More
I'm way more willing.
I don't know about for me, to be honest. I think maybe that's a like
because you were riding a motorcycle before.
yeah, I think it's like the instance in what we've gone through too. This is a good example for like an answer to that question. I've never been asked that straight up, but like I will be totally honest. I think this is maybe a little PTSD too that comes into play. Um, like I am pretty cautious, but like determined. I don't know how to like I'm gonna do it, but I'm gonna make sure that I'm doing it the most precise way that I possibly can, which this isn't always healthy. Um, but I think it's a little PTSD. But yeah, motorcycle accident. I mean, like I was always the driver because I raced motocross competitively my whole life growing up. So like I was always in control. So I always had this fear of something going wrong because I wasn't in control. Not that I didn't trust my husband, but it's not in my control. So, it's a reasonable thing to think. And then all of a sudden it happens
Mhm.
and so like my doubt was solidified. And so yeah, the trust with other people too is something that I struggle with now too. So I don't know. I take some risks here and there, but
Not more or less. It was
I'm
pretty much the same.
yeah, probably. I think less. I was pretty crazy before the accident, I have to
You were
say. Like
base jumping before.
I'm an adrenaline junkie, just yeah. So
So for
I,
me personally, I have like kind of like a what you call it? I would say like a certain relationship with risk, like the way that I think about it and like how like I assess it and like all this stuff. And it like I definitely engage in like some more risk averse like activities, like obviously like eating myself off of bridges and stuff like that. Baby like even all like this stuff, it's like I find I'm more calculated and like I think about it and all this stuff. And it's like really like thinking about like it's not so much because it's like sometimes that's how we let fear like sort of dominate some of our decisions. I want to do something, but this could happen, but that could happen, and we talk ourselves out of it. But now it's like I find I'm able to get more to the heart of it. Like, is the juice worth the squeeze? And it's like, forget what other people think, forget like what the rule says or like all this stuff. You want to do this. You hurting anyone else? Is it worth it to you? What does it mean to you? And all this stuff. And then when you go through all those things, it's like it makes it easier to come to an indiscriminate yes or no on certain things. And then or it's like, oh, I want to do this, but I just want to do this jump really because I'm just trying to get like a cool picture or something. And it's like, that's how I lost it. I lost the plot. And it happens because we're human and all this stuff. And we have our emotions and our ego that, help it drive us to make our decisions, but we also get lost in that stuff too. And it's like, it's hard to be like these like, idealistic, like, all this stuff. It's like I always do the right thing. And it's like, yeah, since cancer, it's like I idolize into my ideal self and I walk and it's like even my shit smells like roses. It's like all this stuff. It's like, no, it's like I think of it's like, balance. Like it's like you're on like a slack line and stuff. And it's like sometimes you look really good at it and you kind of like pick up a new trick or you're trying to like juggle like something else or it's like all these different things. I'm kind of rambling a little bit, but yeah.
No,
yeah.
perfect.
No, I think there's a good piece that you put in there, Manny. Like for me, I sit there, I also think I'm a lot more willing to take an L. Like I'm not afraid of like I'm a lot more willing to fail than I was before. I mean, I was running. I was on a run, clipped a curb, and ended up losing my foot. This is the thing that dads say to scare their kids when they fall. Oh, you have to cut it off. Now I have to be super careful about how I tell this story to my nieces and nephews, um, so I don't give them horror
Yeah, they're never gonna run.
fuel.
They'll never
But
run.
but the piece I liked right there, man, you talk. Yeah, I'm better at the math though. I'm a way better at the math than I was because I experienced at a much deeper level. And then like from there, again, I got hurt running. So if I decide that I'm not going to run because that's what almost ended my life, now running gets a vote in my life experience, and I'm not okay with that. I
I,
am not okay with that getting a vote in my life because one time it didn't go right.
That's well said. Okay, so let's move on a little bit. Did you guys ever have a point where I mean, I don't think you did, but where you wanted to quit or you thought about like, is this really worth it? Like going through, I guess, yeah, going through
A
with
lot
it.
of days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
I
you
had a
guys are so
condition that wouldn't get
determined.
better.
I feel like you guys are so like all determined and like confident. It's like I don't feel like you ever had a point where you're like, well, maybe this isn't worth it or something.
I mean, I was told that there was no light at the end of the tunnel, and I didn't see a light. There was not even a flicker of a light at the end of the tunnel until about 4 weeks before my amputation, which is when it got scheduled. So like I had to constantly say, yes, I want to be here because the out was there. The out was easy. Like, and it was normal. It was expected. It was expected of me to end my life. Um,
Is that
so
something you like prepared yourself? Like, I might not come out of it.
I knew that there was a possibility. Like I had done the math. I was a very objective person, and that was one of the only things that kind of saved me. And there came a point where I I felt like I was doing something wrong to my wife, who wouldn't. I felt the right thing for her to do for a while was to leave because
Mm.
this isn't fair for her life. And so the answer was work or clock out. And so I battled between there may be no end to this, and you're 27, 28, 29, needing walking aids, or I battled between that and the belief that, man, with enough time I will figure this out. With enough time I will figure this out. And that had to go on for 9 years. So no, I mean, like, there's an element of confidence. Confidence doesn't mean a lack of doubt. It's a lack of giving that doubt and fear a vote. That's a lot different. Like, courage is not the absence of fear. The refusal to give it a vote and make a decision.
Take the power. What about you, Manny? Did you ever have
So at the time when I was diagnosed, it all happened like pretty quick. Like when I like first like felt like symptoms and like just like wound up like in the hospital. Like by the time I started feeling bad, it's like already like, oh my God, it's too late, like all this stuff. But in the time that what I did have working for me was that I had this naive optimism that I never Googled about pancreatic cancer and saw like, oh, like, 'cause,
Smart.
like that's what happens with like with so many of us with like so many things that you just go down the rabbit hole and you see like the worst that's like offered of it and you look at the statistics and, oh, so if that statistic, that's my odds of survival, which is not the same thing. And it's really in your own hands, and how far are you willing to go to try to like get answers to stuff or like resolve like some kind of thing, or like, or it's not always quite that simple. But where I have like kind of like struggled with is like basically in the years like past, it's like keeping up that flame, like that fire, that like motivation and all that stuff. And like sometimes I kind of think of it that it's like, yeah, it's like it was like I was trying to get like this little like campfire going like with my life, and all this stuff. And then it's like a bolt of lightning just like came out of the sky and lit like everything on fire. And it's like, oh, how great! Like this is awesome and all that stuff. But then like time goes on and it's like that fire gets smaller and smaller, and then you have to realize like, oh shoot, I gotta tend to this. Like it doesn't just stay lit on its own. And it's like to keep it alive, it's like, I mean, there's a number of ways of going about it, but it just goes back to like that meaning and purpose stuff, that it's like, what are you doing and what are you doing it for and stuff? Because like at some point it's like, you'll be faced with some kind of problem where it's like, well, what's the point of anything? And you'll fall into like some destructive nihilism where it's like you lose purposeless and meaning and like all this stuff. So yeah. So that's kind of like I kind of have it like on the flip side of like what Sam said, that it's like Sam like dealt with like the thing for a lot, like a decade,
9 years? Yeah.
and then he got, like through it. But for me, it was like boom, like you're thrown into the thing. It's like for the next 6 weeks, you're living or dying. Who knows? Are you telling your friends? Are you
Yeah,
posting?
you kind of got tossed into year 8.
Kind of, yeah. Just like trial by fire, you got through it, and then there's like basically it's like, oh, like by 6 months I was already like sort of like, yeah, you're on the up and up, brother. Like you're a miracle. You're a, oh, like all this stuff, and it's like, oh, thank the Sylvester Comprehensive Cancer Center, thank Dr. Hussein, and like all these people, and like and my friends and family, like all these different things. But yeah, so it's like I experienced it the opposite, but I don't know how MaKenzie deals with that sort of thing. It's like
Yeah.
maybe she has like a different way or something.
Yeah, I like definitely there's doubt. And honestly, I think that's just like human nature, really, because if somebody wasn't, having some sort of like, oh crap, moments of like this sucks, like I don't know if I want to keep going, like I think maybe that's not necessarily healthy. But I think prior to my accident, I had a lot of like adversity. I think I don't know anybody's history, but like growing up, went through a lot of traumatic things to start, which now looking back, I think was truly just preparing me for this very large traumatic event to happen to myself because it was happening all around me. Um, and I think I was kind of trained, you know, to like handle these traumatic events as a young person. And so when the accident happened, I kind of was like, oh, like, okay, all of those times I went through prior to this that were really hard and really trials, this is where I need to utilize all those skills I gained growing up, and just put it all in for full force. And, so I think, I still struggle daily, like there's certain things that come up after, your traumatic event that, being an amputee, I'm sure Sam knows too, it's like every day is sometimes it can go completely opposite of what you think. Like you ate too much salt last night and now all of a sudden your leg is tight as shit and like now you're pissed off because it's, like you
It's
get
yesterday.
used to, yeah, yeah. It's like I'm like pregnant now. So this is a new adventure for me. And I'm like, my process is like, well, yeah, like some ladies have gone through like 4 or 5 sockets throughout pregnancy, blah blah blah. And I'm like, no, I do not. I hate getting a new socket. Like I can't do this. So that's just an example of like you're just constantly met with, new
You have to adapt
trials.
every day. You're adapting
Yeah.
some way to something.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah, but
your
I think
comfort gets sapped little by little in different
yeah.
ways.
Yeah, and I think it's just, you just got to keep pushing. Like you're continuously challenged. I think anybody is, in life. Life's not some straight and narrow. But I enjoy it that way because otherwise I get bored. I have severe ADHD, so I'm like, what next? Let's go, So
Yeah, awesome. What did your what do you think it is that kicked in? So like for you, Sam, 9 years and then you made a decision, right? Was there like a specific moment for you that sparked that where you're like, I'm doing this now?
So yeah. Um, so earlier in the year, so I guess we're early on in what would be year 8. That's whenever the first time anybody had mentioned that amputation was a potential solution for CRPS. Um, I was at the Arnold Sports Festival and randomly went by a booth, and this woman who's an amputee, I was on a cane, using a cane at this point, and she was just like, "Hey, do you mind if I ask if are you a military injury by any chance? You seem kind of young but fit, but also using a cane. It's kind of doing the math sort of thing." And our stories were fairly similar in terms of timeline, in the ankle, XYZ, yada yada yada. And so I remember on that drive, is 6 hour drive home from the Arnold with my wife, and discussing that that may be where this has to go if we can't figure anything else out. And that wasn't the moment. But at that point, I realized, though, within a week that I was pretty okay with that if it worked. Um, Later that year, I almost took my own life one night, and I knew that, like, I woke up the next morning and was like, it's now. Now is the time. I'm never going to be stronger for this. I'm never going to be in better shape than this. Yada, I'm barely getting around. I'm headed for a wheelchair. Like, now is the time. And so,
And that was the day after you tried
yeah,
to, wow.
yeah.
That was
I
like
knew
your
that
wake up call.
it had to happen. I knew that, like, it was the time. I just wasn't, I didn't have another year of what I was doing left.
Wow. What about you guys? Manny and MaKenzie. I mean, for Manny, I'm sure like stage 4, they didn't give you a good prognosis or diagnosis, right? Like what do you think is in you to make you not believe them in a way, the doctors?
Well, at the time I was talking to tons of different doctors. So it's like, oh, it's like I had like my general like practitioner that's just like the kind of like sort of like coordinating between all like the doctor teams, but then it's like, oh, you have there's the tumor board, which is basically like, the actual like oncologist, but my case was so bad they wouldn't even come see me. But then it's like, oh, they send the palliative care doctor, the what we'll call it, the gastro doctor, like some other doctor that handles like some other kind of thing. And then it's like they're all coming from these different departments. It's just a constant slew of like all like these different people that I was talking to and like all this stuff. I kind of lost my train of thought. What was the question again?
What made you kind of, in a sense, not believe the diagnosis they gave you, where
So,
you
so
wouldn't
right. So,
fit or something?
and from talking to all these different doctors and all these different teams, I got to see a huge range of bedside manner. So they all have like, their style of like, talking about like this sort of stuff. And at the end of the day, it's like that's a hard part of like, being in like that, medical like career, is that it's like dealing with people that are dying and like all this stuff. And so most of the doctors that would actually have like the conversations with me, they were all delicate in their own ways and stuff. And to be honest, I was so like naive and like casual. Like I kind of had like this sort of like, personality and spirit that you see like in front of you. That's sort of how I was with them. Like I remember at one point, like, oh, I get like, procedures done that it's like, oh, like my liver enzymes are getting like worse like every 6 hours. They're taking my blood work and stuff. So, oh, they're gonna do like they're gonna put a stent in and like all this stuff. So you're on NPO. You can't eat or drink for the next like 8 hours, which sucks because it's like I'm freaking dying here. Like literally, I can't
And
have.
there's literally nothing else to do.
Yeah, and I'm just watching like hospital TV where there's like ads of like the new Doritos Locos, whatever the fuck. Like, damn, I want that. But what should I call it? And so I remember the one of the doctors like comes in and like says like, oh, like, kind of like she shares with me the news from the tumor board that it's like we still don't like we're still pending. We don't know if whether I was on the sixth floor at the time, so we don't know if you're going to the 11th floor chemo or 13th floor hospice. Like it was still like in that stage. And I was still just like cool as like a cucumber. I'm like, oh, okay. And she walks out and was like, hey, let me ask you something. Like, I'm gonna move rooms. And like at the time I was like totally bedridden. Like I was totally I had full jaundice, so my eyes were yellow, my skin was yellow. I had lost about like 40 to 50 pounds like in about like a 6 week period leading up to me like getting like diagnosed and stuff. So I
Wow.
was thin, but I had like a huge like belly from like fluid and all this stuff. I had so many tumors in my liver that my liver was twice its normal size. So instead of just being up here, it's like all across here, and it's just breathe like existence was agony. It's like just everything hurt and was sore, like all this stuff. And I'm talking to her. They were a little fentanyl patch and like my lot of drip and like all this stuff. Watching Bar Rescue, watching John Tapper like yell at some business owner, feeling bad for them. Like, oh my God, I can't imagine having my parents' house on mine. All this stuff. But she's telling me that we still don't know whether we're gonna go like here or there. And I look at her, I'm like, okay, well, it hurts to move. Like I'm obviously not very mobile these days. It's like, oh, whatever floor like I go to, whatever room I go to, am I gonna have to like get up and walk like to the room and all this stuff? And she says, no, like, the bed has wheels, like, we'll roll you up into the new room. I was like, cool, cool. All right, well, hold on. Let me ask you another question. It's like, so let's say I do go to the 13th floor and I go to hospice. You telling me that this bed that I'm in right now is my deathbed? I remember like I don't remember her name, but bless her heart, man. She had her clipboard. She was holding it like this, like to her chest, just like with a solemn look on her face, and she was kind of yeah, like kind of like, and it's one of those things where it's like personally, it's like I like I'm just like all like nonchalant, like oh like this and that. It's like wait, is this my deathbed? She's like yeah, oh
I,
like all this
You
stuff, and
weren't
it's like
supposed to acknowledge that, sir.
yeah.
exactly. It's like we don't say that out loud. And I was like, you'll figure it out. Could you get me some mac and cheese? And she's like, well, no, you're on MPO. Like you're getting like a thing tomorrow. I was like, I know the cafeteria told me that. I thought you could help me. Like, all right, well, thanks. So, see you like I'm gonna keep watching Bar Rescue now. Just very just like, but I had like this naive optimism that like I know I'm gonna get better. It's just stage 4 cancer. Like,
Wow.
and it's one of those
Where
things.
does that come from, though? That's my question. Like, where did that mind state come from? Were you always just nonchalant and chill, and you knew things would work out?
I just felt that when I found out that it was cancer, I found out at a different hospital and they had found it in my liver first. So they didn't even tell me what type that's part of what it was, is that for the first like few days, I didn't even know what type of cancer it was. I just know that, okay, they found it in my liver, but it spread to my liver and they need to find out where it started before they can even treat it. So in my head, I was just like, all right, I got stage 4 pancreatic cancer, but I'm a young guy and I'm in Miami, there's like some pretty great like hospitals here and stuff and all this, and like what really would have made me nervous is if I would have noticed how my parents were starting to make like moves and like calls to like, oh shoot, maybe we gotta go up to Moffitt in Tampa. That's like the other cancer hospital that's really good. Or we gotta go to MD Anderson in like Texas. So that's that support system that I was talking about. That it's like, brother, it's like if I was by myself, nah, I'd be dead. I would have been cooked, like all this stuff. But it's like because I'm like my family, like primarily, and because of the hospital and the clinical, like all this stuff, it all came together. But yeah.
Very cool.
Also, like, what's the consequence of being optimistic?
Feeling like a fool, hurting your ego.
Yeah, but in that scenario, you're telling me I might be dead in a week anyway, so give a fuck,
So what's
right?
exactly, exactly.
Like, what is
Yeah,
the consequence of believing that it might come through? 1% is not zero, sort of thing.
But I
And
think a lot of people give into it and they
Oh,
believe their
they
doctors
absolutely
is
do.
gospel, It's like, all right, they're saying I
or
only
that
have
one
6
doctor
weeks.
told me I'm not even gonna think about getting like a second opinion or like, see like, it's one of those things where it's kind of like what I was saying before. Like when there's a will, there's a way. And it's like even if people like call you dumb or foolish or stupid, it's like I still want to get better. I want to like I can't accept like, this situation how it is. There must be like another way and stuff. That's still
Oh,
grounded in some kind of
yeah.
reason.
I was told that if I had an amputation, I would for sure fail. I had a surgeon tell me that directly to my face.
Like you would still have pain despite
Yeah.
cutting.
He goes, if you have an amputation, you will fail. And starts pointing in my face and listing it off. This is after he introduced himself. And that was where the conversation went.
What did you say?
I was like, well, I don't even remember, to be honest. I just remember thinking, like, this motherfucker gets paid to be a surgeon. And he just walked in and says, hi, I'm Dr. Zakari. And if you get an amputation, you'll fail. And starts pointing at a grown man's face. Like, fuck you.
Yeah.
I was like, I told him, I was like, my guess is you probably don't have the skill set to do this surgery anyway, which he
Yeah.
wasn't a big fan of. And then whenever he left, I was like, you did a terrible job at your job today. I hope you do better. I literally told him that. I was like, you
You
did
got
a
to do
terrible
better.
job today, and I hope you do better for the next person. And you could tell all his like residents, and he had like 3 or 4, and they all just turned white. They were just like, nobody talks to him like that. It's like, fuck him.
He's a
And
doctor.
I was like, what do you think I have to lose?
Yeah. What about you, MaKenzie? When after your accident, like what were the doctors telling you?
Um, well, the doctor said a lot. I was intubated and in induced coma for about 3 days in and out of like several surgeries. And well, I really wasn't even supposed to make it um out of the ditch. So it was kind of like in the beginning, it was just like we need to get her all of her blood back because I literally that was my biggest threat was bleeding to death. And so the beginning was more or less just like making sure that I survive. My mom was told right before the first like 8 hour surgery, like life or limb, which is the dumbest question I've ever heard of. But it's a real thing. My mom literally looked and she's like, "Are you fucking kidding me? Life or limb? Like my daughter needs to be alive," kind of a thing. So that was the first thing the doctor said, life or limb. So that's wild. But I did come out with my leg still in like a huge X fix. It was just annihilated. I was missing like a lot of my femur had blown out into the ditch. So it was about a week and a half of just in and out of procedures, wound cleaning, because like I mean we were in like a we were right by the Mississippi River, so real dirty ditch, so clean outs and all that stuff. We were just trying, it was kind of like a blur of like my mom taking notes of everything, and I don't think I ever really listened to any of that. It was just like I was just purely trying to not be in pain and survive. And it actually was like one day after one of my millionths of surgeries, it was like a week and a half later, I like had this thought and I'm like, I think amputation is what they want to do, and I think that's like what we got to do. And I was having that conversation with myself, and I told my mom that morning, I'm like, "Mom, I'm gonna amputate my leg." Like, and I was pretty chill, I'm like, I'm just happy to be alive here, and like my head was fine somehow. Like we didn't have helmets on. Like it was a miracle. Like there's no reason we should either be here. And at this time, my husband's in the hospital too, and it's mid COVID, so we can't see each other and only one person can come in. Like it's, this is like craziness happening in the world. And I told my mom that I was like, I think we're gonna amputate my leg. And the doctor came in like a couple minutes later and he's like, I think like amputation, and he's like, if you want to amputate, he's like, I'm not gonna argue with you, but if you want to keep your leg, you're gonna be in this hospital for another year or so. And I was like, oh hell no. I was like, let's get this thing off. Like I'm like I need to get out of here. And I started researching prosthetics that night. I looked up right away Mike Schultz because I'm like I'm racing motocross again all of a sudden. Like I hadn't raced in a while. Like I hadn't raced in years, and I'm like I'm getting a dirt bike tomorrow. Like he has his prosthetic, it's sweet, So I don't know. I just think my doctors were great. Like I shouldn't even be alive, and thank God for them. Like the fact that Red Wing, my smaller town, had a unit of blood is the only reason I'm alive, because the ambulance does here, and then I flew out in a helicopter, and um, the surgeon that's did all of my surgeries pretty much, we're still in contact, and um, yeah, they were great. I only had a couple nurses that I told to fuck off a couple times, but so I can't be mad about that.
Only a couple,
Um,
yeah.
yeah,
Glad
so
somebody else is cursed.
yeah, yeah, but yeah, so I don't know. The
Gotcha.
doctor's great.
All right, that's good. I mean, I've done a lot of these, like I said, and a lot of people tell me like the doctors told me this and that, and I wouldn't make it, and so you guys had some good ones. I guess Sam, not really. Like yours wasn't really too good, I guess.
The the standard's just not very high at the VA.
That's unfortunate.
That's just the reality of it. They're not incentivized to work harder.
Yeah. Is that
Like
something you're trying to change or you
I
comment about?
no, I'm just trying to support the people that aren't getting support.
Yeah.
I can't go in there and complain my way to better doctors.
Yeah.
Um, like the reality is, there's no incentive for the VA to do any better because where else am I going to go?
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you.
Like
They
that's the
laid off a
reality.
lot of, I feel like they just laid off a lot of people too.
They are,
Yeah.
they are, and it won't be the right people.
Hmm.
Like, like the reality is, there's probably at least that many people there that are not earning their money,
Yeah.
and most of them are going to get to keep their job.
Yeah. Jeez. All right. Let me move on here. Do you guys have any role models? Anyone? Or mentors? Anything like that?
I would say my mom's like my number one. I mean, when I said like growing up, I went through a lot. Like it was a lot of the time just me and my mom, just trying to survive. And, through a very bad marriage of her and my dad. And they're both great now. Like, just disclaimer, if my dad watches this, love you. And, things happened. But, we went through everything together, like it was like, and then my siblings are older than me. So, they got the luck of moving out earlier. And so my mom has also been through cancer twice. And her first cancer was my senior year of high school. And I went to play on a scholarship for volleyball standing, obviously. And I left after 3 weeks. And because my mom was doing treatment and I had been there the whole entire time, and I hated my volleyball coach, and I was like, I don't need to be here. Like my mom's at home. Like I don't know if she's gonna make it. She made it through that time, and then literally during my accident, my mom had a double mastectomy for breast cancer.
Wow.
I got my leg amputated. She had double mastectomy the next day, and ended up right back at my hospital room the next day. So she's
Jeez.
just been my,
You guys are just giving
solid.
parts away.
2020.
No, we're
uh,
just donating here, left and right.
Who
And
needs what?
2020 was insane for you. Holy crap.
yeah, yeah, but she's the strongest person. She lost her first husband to brain cancer. Like just we've been given a lot of, crappy hands, but she always taught me, you can't cry about it. Like this is life. You gotta keep going, because nobody's gonna do it for you. You have to do it for yourself, and you gotta be strong. And so she's definitely my number one role model.
You got fighter hearts all over that family tree over
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
What about you guys? Any mentors or role models, either back then or now? Manny.
Yeah, what's it called? Biggest one is my dad. For sure that, he's a smart guy, intelligent, quick wit, like all this stuff. Like, and this is kind of crass, but it's like I kind of like describe to my friend. It's like, yeah, my dad is like the biggest dick dude that I know, like by far. Like he's just like just a real guy. um, and stuff. And then what was really empowering for me was during that time was that, because like at the time when I was going through my cancer, it's like, I mean, yeah, like I was like in pain and like all this stuff and like dealing with it, but I saw it as like a purely temporary thing. It's like, it's a question of when, not if. But the tough part was seeing my dad and my mom and like really like all like my friends and family, like like every day, like kind of like looking at me, like trying to overcome this whole like dead man walking attitude and stuff, because that's kind of like how like everyone was. It's like kind of like, it's like, oh shoot, it's like, we're running out of time here. It's like everyone's like kind of like starting their own grieving process in a way. And I'm the only
Yeah.
one like, oh, fuck are you guys so sad about? It's like, come on. It's like, bro, Noel, I asked Noel's my brother. I'm like, I asked you to bring me Crash Bandicoot. They just came out with a remake for the Switch. And okay, I'll download it on the hospital Wi-Fi, like complaining about like basic shit because I'm just bored and like all this stuff. But
Yeah.
The new Tony Hawk came out the day before I left the hospital. My
Yeah.
wife found me at 4 a.m. because I was on a hospital sleep schedule. The first night I was home, my wife stepped out and I was awake on the couch because I couldn't wake. I've been playing Tony Hawk since 4 a.m.
but part of what was so empowering for me during that time is that it's like, oh, like I need to be there and be the inspiration and be the rock, like for the ones that like I used like that I look to and stuff. Like it was like, I mean, it's like I feel like that's part of life and like growing up and stuff, especially like with your parents and stuff. That it's like, oh yeah, look, I'm standing on my own 2 feet and like doing like no hands, check me out, like all this stuff. But it's like one of those things where it's like I remember I used to like look around and like think like, man, like these people are falling apart like a little bit and stuff. It's like I gotta be like, make a joke, like kind of like be like a what's that Robin Williams movie, that Patch Adams, like for my family type shit, but
Yeah.
no one's dying, like all this stuff. But it's yeah, no, that my pops, my biggest mentor, among many others. Yeah.
Sam, I'm guessing your wife is what you're gonna say.
Yeah, she's probably the only one. I actually did. I grew up in an extremely discouraging of me scenario, um, sort of thing. I like not don't want to get too deep into it, but like yeah, like I didn't have that. I kind of got taught that I had to, I learned a lot to take care of myself, and so through all this, I like through those 9 years of chronic pain, I basically had lost all of my friends. All my relationships were, you know, I couldn't show them an injury, so fuck it. They're not going to deal with me. I was inconvenient, and
Mm.
because I was inconvenient, I wasn't invested in, and like, there wasn't, there's always that hint of like Sam's just being dramatic. Sam's lying. Sam's a baby. Sam's, this, that, or the other. And so, honestly, it was like that was, you know, from a very early age that I remember. I always remember having this version of myself that was this very capable human being, strong, capable, etc. And it was kind of that knowledge and that belief that that version of me was there, and nobody was going to bring it out other than myself. And I had to be that guy, and I had to choose to be that guy and be the best version that I could be. And that's just what that version of me would do in that scenario. I had to be very locked into like, what does my highest self do in this scenario? And he chooses amputation and doesn't think twice, doesn't have, you know, doesn't need, things could have been a lot better, but it got done, sort of thing. No, I said no. I didn't really. My wife was an absolute savior. I will say that there are three things that definitely got me to the finish line, and my wife was one of those three.
Yeah, that's awesome. Did you guys while you were going through it, did you look up like other people that went through something similar and kind of use that as inspiration?
I learned not to do that with my condition.
Mm.
Do you go? You look up anything about CRPS? It is not good. It's either really confusing or it is woe is me, woe is me. Like I kept saying, oh, just join a support group, and I'd like fucking like, peek my head into the support group, and it's just people bitching. Like, and I get it. You have a lot to complain about. Like, but I also saw where they were going, and it was nowhere. It was just they were accelerating their spiral, and I knew I couldn't be a part of that. And so no, I learned don't do that.
Don't look up anything.
Don't look it up.
Yeah.
It ain't for you. There's better stuff out there for it now, as we've started to become like, oh, chronic pain might actually be a fucking problem.
Uh,
But like back in 2011, it was confusing and
yeah.
scary. And yeah, like I remember when I got my diagnosis, there was two things that stuck out because this is in a military setting. I remember the doctor telling me, and it was like one of the most sincere interactions I had with medical until I met my surgeon. And he's like, this is the most clear cut case of CRPS I've ever seen in my life, and I'm very sorry.
Mm.
And I remember that, like, I have chills right now. Like, yeah, that was I didn't realize how bad it was at the time because I was like 20 or 21. Yeah, I was 21 in a special operations career field. Like, I was untouchable. I had just come back from a broken femur. I broke my femur 3 days into selection, finished the course. You feel pretty invincible on shit like that. Throw in being dumb enough to be 21. um, so yeah, it was that, and then the woman was like, "I would assume your med board's already started." I was like, "What's that?"
Yeah.
Med board being your discharge. And in
Oh.
my head, I'm like, no, we're going to get this figured out so I can go back into the pipeline. I'm going to go be an operator.
What about you two? Did you look up your situation at all, or you did the same kind of thing, MaKenzie?
Um, I definitely looked up things. Like I think I went to social media, honestly, which is a lifesaver in like the disability world. I think I'm very thankful for that. Um, and just looked up everybody that was like amputees. And like, what are these crazy people doing? Because I'm about to do it, and um
Did any stories stick out to you that you looked up, or it's just like everything combined, you helped build up the confidence?
well, Mike Schultz, since I don't know if anybody know Mike Schultz. Okay, so
Good dude.
he's actually from Minnesota, where I'm from, and he lives in St. Cloud. And I realized all this all at the same time. And he races motocross. He had his amputation due to a snowcross accident, and so he just really connected with me. And I can't remember if it was his wife or him. I messaged him right away. I was like, look, because I was going to race motocross again, and I was like, look, I need to do this, blah blah blah. And that just opened up a whole nother world of amputees and disability world. And like, because I was totally naive to that. Like, you don't realize as an able-bodied person that you can literally become disabled at any moment. um it's a really eye-opening situation that I was like, wow, I was super naive and kind of an asshole. And you know that was another whole learning curve for me.
Hmm.
But the disabled community on social media is super supportive. And I just kept reaching out to people, like, didn't really care like if they replied or not. But I got really good responses, and everybody's very like encouraging. And so that was super like motivating to know like there's like things that I can do after this that are going to be things I probably never did before. Like with volleyball, like standing, I would have never thought of going to the Olympic level. Like I was determined. I was a really good athlete, but I just didn't see past college. I was like, meh, and now I'm like on the Paralympic level, and it's like
Hmm.
completely different world. So it's just, you know,
Yeah.
um, I think social media is to thank for that too, because that's how I found the team. So
Yeah, 2011, it wasn't too popular, I guess,
right, totally
for Sam. What about
different
you, Manny?
times.
I'm sorry, what was the question again?
Like, what did you look up other people with pancreatic stage 4?
So at the time I didn't, because I wasn't even Googling about like cancer. Because it's like, even like with cancer, it's like I already knew. It's like that's like we all joke about like, I looked at my stuff on WebMD and haha, I have cancer. So it's like I'm not even gonna go down that rabbit hole and like all that stuff. And then I also found that it's like I found it like exhausting to since I was at such a great hospital, I was getting like the firsthand information. And then since I had like this great firsthand information, I'm constantly explaining it to all my friends and family and stuff. And then it's one of those things where it's like everybody doesn't want to pry, but everybody wants to know, like, oh my gosh, how's it going? He's getting better. It's like this thing's like working, or like he's like all this stuff. And it's like, okay, well, like it's like getting everyone like up to speed in like all like these different ways and stuff. But what was a huge thing that happened to my mom was that, because at the time it's like I had like this confidence I was going to get better. My mom was like, oh my God, like I have to think about where I'm going to bury my son, like, type shit. And so she would like Google and like look up like do like all my family and stuff. And she came across this one foundation for pancreatic cancer. There's a couple, but there's one in particular called the Cena Magwitz Foundation. And the guy who started it, his name's Roger Magowitz, and he started it. It's called Cena for his mother that passed away from pancreatic cancer. But he basically started it with the goal with what you call it to get survivors together because with pancreatic cancer, it's like at the time when I was diagnosed, like in the US, it's like it's like 80% of people that get diagnosed year one pass. So the stage doesn't really matter. It's just like you got pancreatic cancer, 80% of people are dying that first year. To make it to year five, it jumps up to 95%. And then year 10 is like 99. So pancreatic cancer, like similar to leukemia, it's like it's often like, or like with a lot of different kinds of cancers, it's like it's not so much like, oh, like how are we gonna beat this? It's more like how much time can we give you?
Yeah.
Balancing that with a quality of life and all that. But so my mom found this Sina Magwis Foundation, and it's like they do stuff also like raising money, and they get doctors connected together from like these top institutions that like their work kind of either like either parallels each other or like all like they get like the top tier researchers like in a room together and help like get their research funded and like all this stuff, which is really cool. But the really cool thing or the huge thing for my mom was that they have survivor stories and testimonials and stuff because you start looking at these statistics and like all this stuff, and like that's what Google screws up, like that's like all the info that we're all getting, and like you start going down the rabbit hole and like like getting in your own head. But she comes across this foundation, and like basically it was like her like ray of hope where it's like, okay, my son isn't totally insane, even though I jump off of buildings for fun, but he's not totally insane, that this can be done. It
Yeah.
has been done, and we're doing it in like a similar way that like these other people saw success, where it's like we work,
Yeah.
it wasn't even so much like, oh, get us to like the best hospital. It's like which hospital has like success with this, or like all this stuff, or it's like seeing how many, like leveraging every person we knew or ever knew from like the last 30 years, like, hey, do you know somebody here that can get us into there, like all this stuff. And it's like, and we're not like particularly like we're not like wealthy or like rich or famous and stuff, but we have friends.
Mhm.
And
Yeah. You
it
knew
took
a lot of people.
it took a village, and a little bit more. But
So
yeah,
it helped your mom more than it helped you, really.
yes. So basically, yeah, this foundation gave my mother a sense of hope that I couldn't give her myself, which is like
Yeah.
that was cool. That was
Yeah,
cool.
that's great. So we're gonna wrap it up in a minute, but we can open up to questions if Peter or Ed or Ryan have questions, or even if you guys have questions for each other. Otherwise, yeah, I got one more for you, and then we can get out of here. Anyone have anything to chime in about?
How hard can you kick with your legs, Sam? Can you like break shit?
Which leg?
The with your prosthetic, like could you?
I don't kick with my prosthetic.
Ah.
It's kind of like that weird deal. Like you ever like everybody's had that experience. Like you think there's one more step. It's kind of like that where you can't really feel where the foot is in space, and that's a really big piece of turning a kick over. Now
Right.
that being said, I do kick like a mule on my right side, which is probably why no one will fight me. Because they're like, I don't want to be the dude that walks out limping from leg kicks from the amputee.
Oh yeah.
That's good.
What's your dream jump, Manny?
Dream jump. Oh, I have a few. But right now, honestly, this is gonna sound silly. So I have a few like dream base jumps where right now the jump that I've been thinking about most is a skydive that I want to do. Well, actually, I'll kind of show you like right up here. I just picked up learning how to I'll show you like up here on my wall. Boom, this thing. This is my sky surfboard. I'm
Well, you
learning.
got the blur, the back,
Blur on,
the
but
Oh,
you
blur.
can
whatever.
imagine.
You can see it there. I'll post videos of it to like my Instagram and stuff. But like
In my
basically,
head, it was very cool.
so I'm gonna start learning how to do that. But then, so I want to combine that with doing it. I'm also a musician. I've been playing like the guitar since I was a kid, and like bass and drums and like all this kind of stuff. And I wanna play the Freebird solo as I jump out while I'm on the surfboard, like surfing and shit. Just
Trying to
like,
think how high you'd have to jump to have time for that.
oh, that at a standard photo. Bro, in 60
I,
seconds,
s-
I can lay down like a
I
good.
just need like 12 minutes of flight. I
I'll
just
have
need
my
like 12 minutes of
piano.
falling.
We all call him Circus Joe because he has like a circus background and stuff. He'll fly in head down with a camera, like watching me, and I'll be like, yeah, that's what I'm thinking. That's my project planning for jumping. It's like, yeah,
Okay.
we're totally safe though. Safety is paramount, and we're within parameters, and we.
Safety's always third.
I don't think that's ever been done. Has anyone ever done a solo like just rip it on a
I don't think
Take
with
that
jump
guitar,
out?
slash.
like actually playing it, and then I want to actually like record it where it's like, oh, the audio. It's not like I'm like dubbing it. It's like you're hearing me actually lay down this
What
freaking
did it what
guitar
did it
solo.
sound like in real time?
Yeah. This
That's
is me
wild.
playing it. This ain't yeah. That would be cool.
Literally a concert in the sky.
Yeah, just for me. Just
Which is really what you call that. That's the YouTube title.
I
There you go.
guess,
I love when you got better ideas for other people than yourself.
but to do that, it's like, oh, like there's some steps like in like that process and stuff. But it's like, yeah, no, I'll get there. It's like, by the end of the summer, there'll be something.
Well, thank you guys so much. Unless anyone else has any questions, anyone else? Forever hold your peace. So finally, what impact do you guys hope your story has on someone listening? Maybe they're fighting for their life too.
There's
Um,
oh,
I'll
Go,
go for
MaKenzie.
it. My biggest thing, that I always have said since my accident is I just want to be able to like tell people don't wait for the traumatic moment to start actually living your life. Don't wait to, go through something crazy to start doing the things you say you're gonna do. That was my biggest promise to myself was while I was laying there hoping I wasn't gonna actually pass away, is I was like, I promise I'm gonna do everything I said I'm gonna do instead of just saying it and nonchalantly just meh, maybe I'll get to it. That's my biggest thing.
Manny?
and so that it's kind of similar to what like Mackenzie just said, but it's like it's one of those things where it's like, look, what are you waiting for? Just like get up and do it. And that get up and do it just like for the average person like hearing this and really like I believe like most advice is really just us projecting. I'm kind of saying this to myself too because it's like brother, it's like you've been sleeping on some things. It's like get to it, but also it's there's hope in almost like everything that we can do, and that we're often our own worst enemies, and that it's like when we feel that things are hopeless, it's us telling this story to ourselves about our life that it's hopeless, and it's just a reframe and like change of perspective that it's like, oh wait, this is, much more useful and better. So,
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Sam?
Um, Wildly different. No, no, it's all the same direction.
I don't know
But
what
no,
they're
like,
talking about.
yeah, plain and simple. Like, if I inspire you, I hope I inspired you to act, not just to feel good for a moment because you pressed like on a poor disabled kid's post. So if I inspired you, I hope I inspired you to move.
Awesome.
The biggest disability is a self-limiting belief, and get yourself a good dog.
Awesome advice, guys. Thank you so much for taking the time. We love talking to you guys. Remember, if anyone wants to learn more about their stories in detail, we interviewed MaKenzie, Sam, and Manny in their own individual podcasts. So you go back and listen to those. But thank you again for listening to this very special Fighter Heart Roundtable, and we will see you again next week.